My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
And I'm Robert. In every episode, we're bringing you faith stories and fishing memories from some amazing members of the fishing community.
So join us as we shed a positive light on all things faith and fishing. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we have a long overdue and an exciting episode for you that I'm pumped about. But first, Robert, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. I got out to go fishing a couple of times. Went to the work pond a few times, and that's always fun. Had a little topwater bite going on, so that was awesome. And then went to Sharon Harris once since we did our last podcast, and went all the way up in the swamp there, and had caught a couple of decent ones and hooked a big one on daggone Mr. B chatterbait. But unfortunately, I wasn't quick enough on the hook set, and he got off. And he was running straight toward me. I never could catch up to him. I mean, I was reeling as fast as I could, and he was coming straight at me. So missed that one, but excited for this weekend's Battle of the Border. So a lot of the North Carolina, Virginia clubs heading up to Bugs Island, Carr Lake. So that'll be pretty fun. Going to camp out tomorrow night. So got the truck loaded and heading to work. And as soon as I get off of work, headed up there. So should be a good weekend. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I have not gotten a chance to do any fishing since. I'm going to try to get out tomorrow after work, but that's going to depend a lot on how I feel after we get done with the podcast recording tonight in terms of packing up the car and everything. I don't know if you can tell by my sultry, deep voice, but I am quite congested. I decided that it was a good idea to sand my drywall patches last week without a mask on, and I am paying for it now. So I'm going to try to remember to mute myself every time that I have to cough, but I've got my heavy duty cough drop in my mouth. So, and for those of you who have followed along with the podcast, do not worry. This time it is not one of the ones that numbs my mouth. So I should not be slurring my speech or anything like that this time. But yeah, I haven't done any fishing. This weekend, we've going out of town for a birthday party, and then Sunday, y'all are going to be, it'll be past by the time you hear this. But I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway, just because I might pull it for a reel or something to put up there. But I am going to be. I'm going to be in New Bern for Mumfest on Sunday in the Carolina Waters booth, helping them out. So if I pull this for a reel, y'all can come and see me. If not, y'all can still use promo code STEEL15 and get you 15% off of some awesome apparel there. So CarolinaWatersNC.com. But yeah, other than that, I think that is all the housekeeping I've got. Robert, am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead. Let's thank a couple sponsors and get our guest introduced. Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality handcrafted lures and has been for 30 years right here in the U.S. Using all-metal components, Owner and Gamakatsu hooks, and silicone or frog hair skirts, Mr. B is pumping out some awesome spinner baits, jigs, buzz baits, underspins, and more, including some of the most unique bladed jigs on the market. To fill up your tackle box, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, and use promo code faithnfishnpod1x10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. That's faith the letter N, fish the letter N, P-O-D, so Faith and Fishing Pod, just like our Instagram handle, 1x10. If finesse fishing is your comfort zone, something you want to learn better this year, or just something you like to tie on as a Hail Mary pass, Jade's Jigs has everything you need and more. and it's all eco-friendly and lead-free. With an awesome selection of baits and colors, they've got a variety of techniques covered for you. Finesse jigs, underspins, Nico weights, Ned rigs, and more are all waiting for you at jadesjigs.com. And while you're there, use promo code FNF10 for 10% off your purchase. That's jadesjigs.com and promo code FNF10 for 10% off. All right, so if those of you out there who don't know, I struggle with ADHD, and ADHD comes with a lot of fantastic things, but it comes with some challenges too. And one of those challenges for me is that I am really good at reaching out to people to have on the podcast. And if they say yes, but not right now, I am terrible about getting that person on the podcast. And a lot of times it ends up being a back and forth. And in this case, it's been almost a year since she originally said yes to come on the podcast, and but just she was not available at the week that I asked, and then it took me this long to finally get her on the podcast. But if you are someone who follows kayak fishing, you know exactly who this was. Whenever you clicked on the episode, she is one of the top kayak anglers in the country, and is just a phenomenal angler and a phenomenal person. I'm excited to have her on the show, Miss Kristine Fischer.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Thanks for following back up and getting me on.
Absolutely. So, if there's anyone out there who is listening who's maybe they're not in the kayak scene, or they just don't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us who Kristine Fischer is.
Well, I guess who Kristine Fischer is in relation to the kayak fishing space. I've been doing this kayak fishing for, probably 8, 9, 10 years now. First few years were kind of more on the recreational side. I've been competing in tournaments for the last 6 years and have been doing this full time for 4 years. So it's been an amazing journey. I'm from Nebraska originally, so bass fishing wasn't really something I was super into. We grew up doing a lot of walleye and muskie and perch fishing, kind of in that Midwest area and then up north. And I was a big muskie. I kind of cut my teeth muskie fishing and chasing trophy pike. That's kind of how I made my name, and then found out there were these things called these kayak bass fishing tournaments, and I started that, and the rest is kind of history.
Absolutely, yeah. Whenever I started following you, it was you holding up these massive muskie, and in this little plastic boat, and the fish looked as big as you were, and just just awesome. So, kind of, what got you started into kind of filming your adventures, and kind of getting into the content creation scene?
Well, couple of things. I think that I'm trying to remember when I really first started running a GoPro. I brought a GoPro to a lot of people back I used to work at an archery shop, and they didn't believe me. And they didn't believe the size of pike I was catching in one of our local lakes in Nebraska. So I wanted to get pictures because, it's like, oh, picture, it didn't happen. So I started bringing a GoPro out for that. And then ironically enough, when I first started filming all of my tournaments and doing content that way, it was after, actually, it wasn't after, it would have been 4 years ago now, I think, because I started doing really well in tournaments in the Midwest series first, and then started fishing some of the Hobie stuff. And I started to hear just random, and looking back now, it really didn't matter. And I'm almost thankful this happened, but they're just these random internet trolls that said there's no way she's catching her own fish. Someone must be helping her. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like, how could anyone say this? But it's because, it just hadn't really been done before. There weren't many women that were succeeding or having success. And so I just started running my GoPro the entire time during the tournament and talking through my decision-making and what I was doing, literally for the sole purpose just to protect myself and to prove people. And then now I'm making good money off of YouTube. So I was like, oh, thanks guys. Thanks for thinking I was cheating way back then. Because it built a really, really strong YouTube following. When I still don't consider myself a YouTuber at all, but I almost have 100,000 subscribers now, and I enjoy doing my tournament recaps, and it just provides insurance on what I'm doing and where I'm fishing, and that it's all kind of me by myself doing it.
Well, that's great. And I was going to save this for later, but since we're on the YouTube deal as we speak, I watched Jake's video today that he put out, and I don't know if you've seen it, but obviously you were there right beside him, and you guys, I think it is probably one of the most poignant sharing water moment, as you guys are like, okay, are you guys ready to cast? And you guys both are casting at the same time, because evidently you guys found the same fish in practice and we're going to the same spot. And it's one of the, if everybody was like that, and Jake is a great guy, and it was just one of those. Yeah. It was just one of those moments that you got. It was just neat to watch. And
my version will come soon. It'll be good too.
Yeah, I know. So it was funny today. I was like, oh, that's it's just one of those times where it's like, why can't more people be like this instead of battling over, fish that you guys both found? It's like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then you guys each caught one, and then you were like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do my own thing. So, but it was just a neat moment. And there's so many of those, not just that one, but there's so many of those in the videos and even the social media posts that you put out, that really your persona and everybody that follows you, it's more than just kayak bass fishing now. Some of the posts that you put out are extremely well written, and they're from the heart, and it really, probably helps more people than you know. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, here's a post from Kristine, and then you look at how many people have viewed it, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're reaching these thousands of people with these things that you're putting out. And I know you never meant for that. Like, you didn't set out to be like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And that's what makes it even more cool. And, one reason we wanted to have you on here is just like, you touch a ton of people, and, it's one of those things that is kind of unexplainable, but so glad it happened.
Yeah. And honestly, you say unexplainable. There's been so many years where I've been to a breaking point where it was almost too much to be kind of in this small spotlight in our small space. Right. And there's been so many times I wanted to get out of the fishing space and not do this and get off social media. But, God keeps opening doors for me, and I know that he wants me in the space. And even though it's really, really hard, those times where I've almost wanted to quit, I'll say, God, like, if you really want me here, you've got to show me this is where I'm meant to be. And then I'll get an email from a high school angler or a mom of a high school angler that says something. And I'm just like, okay, I got to stick it out for just a little bit more. And then, it's all God. I mean, it really is. It's that I'm still here, and that I'm still doing this, and that the doors just keep opening for me. So for whatever reason, God wants me in this space and still wants me in this space. And I'll do it as long as I feel like that's where he wants me to be. I hope one day I get to kind of step back and step out of the, kind of the face of things sometimes, I think. And I never wanted to be that. And hopefully one day I get to kind of step back behind the scenes and do some things. But we'll see what my future holds in that.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, you are, like Robert said, you're touching a lot of people. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk about was the role model that you are for all the different, I'm not going to just say young, but all of the women who are in this sport and getting into this sport and wanting to be in this sport. And this is a sport that has been so male dominated, and has had a lot of alpha male personalities that believe that they are the only people who are supposed to be here. regardless of what people they're talking about, whatever person they are talking about is the only kind of people that they feel are supposed to be here. So um, I wanted to kind of get your take on breaking into that space and being a part of this space and being such an influential person in this space, and kind of having to break through that, the challenges behind that, and the inspiration that you've had, anyone who's been kind of like a role model or a mentor to you, and just kind of talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so I think I was pretty fortunate because since my childhood, I've always I was a textbook tomboy. So I was surrounded by, my good friends were all guys, neighborhood guys. I was always doing the creek and stuff, just the stuff that was a little different. And I think that I never really viewed it as, we look at the societal norms. A lot of women aren't seen as the ones fishing, but I was fortunate enough to see my mom in that role, fishing and running the boat equally as much as my dad. So I just never really thought that that was different. And then I got my first experience of what the obstacles were for me when I started working at a hard goods store, a Midwestern retailer, and the archery shop and the fishing and hunting. I was the only female in the entire hard goods section in the entire company out of like 30 stores in the US. And that's when I started to kind of understand that being a female in that space was very rare and a lot of people weren't used to it. And I'd have customers that would come in to get their bows worked on and they wouldn't want me to work on them, or people in the fishing or hunting area that didn't want me to help sell them, this rod and reel that I could sell just as good, if not better, than most all the guys there. And that was in my mid 20s. I was working there. So that was hard for me. And there would be so many times where I was so discouraged and I felt like, how are these people, how am I ever going to make it here? This is what I want to do. It's what I love, but I'm not being taken seriously. I'm never going to be taken seriously. And I owe a lot to my bosses, that I worked at the time, and my coworkers. All the men that worked with me adored me and looked out for me and took care of me. And every time they'd see a customer do that, they'd say, "Oh, you don't want to talk to me. You want to talk to her about this. This is her specialty." And they told me, it's like, look, prove them wrong. Don't get defeated. Learn how to prove them wrong in a very tactful way. So say someone was looking at an archery, like a Hoyt carbon spider, and I'd walk up to them, instead of saying, "Hey, how's everything going? Can I help you with anything?" Because they'd say, "Oh, nope." But then I'd walk away and a guy would come up and they'd start asking questions. I'd bypass all of that. And I'd say, "Oh, you're checking out the Hoyt carbon spider. It's got a 6.5-inch brace height. It weighs 3.5 pounds. I freaking love that boat. It's the last in the market." And I just start spitting facts about the product. And immediately they kind of look at me funny, and then they'd say, "Oh yeah, so what is that? How does that compare to this?" And I made sure I was as well versed and as knowledgeable on everything, and I'd put that out there first, and it really helped me. And then I gained this incredible customer base, and my sales were through the roof with it. So that background working in that male-dominated hard goods selling area helped me so much than going into the tournament fishing scene, because I was almost a little calloused, if that makes sense. Like, I was ready for it. I had dealt with it. I knew what it was like. I knew what I had to do. And there were a lot of things that I wish I was a little more refined. I did have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, as I just made a post about that. I felt like I had everything to prove to these tournament guys, and I really didn't have anything to prove. I really didn't, but I felt like I did. And I think that the background in selling and hard goods helped me tremendously, just prepare me for what I was going to be doing in the next 10 years of my life.
That's awesome. So yeah, we've kind of talked about it a little bit already, but let's dive into your faith a little bit. So it's definitely not something that I would say you're shy about talking about, but um, what kind of give us your faith story. What is it you believe in, and how'd you come to believe that?
Well, I'm a Christian. I believe that, Jesus is our Lord and Savior. He died on the cross, and the way through heaven is through him. The way to heaven is through him. Um, I grew up in a family that thankfully has a very strong faith as well. My mom and dad. Now, we didn't go to church a lot when I was a kid. We didn't start going religiously until I think I was in junior high. And then it was a big part of that in high school. And, back then, I always, even into my 20s, I always believed that I believed in God. I knew who God was. I believed in Jesus. I believed in all of that, but I didn't have the relationship, if that makes sense. My journey took a lot of me messing up, but thank goodness our God is full of mercy and grace, and gives us forgiveness, grants us forgiveness, and we certainly do not deserve it. And I felt very undeserving of His forgiveness for so long. But it wasn't probably until my late 20s where I really started to seek that relationship with Him. I didn't want to be just a Christian or just go to church and just get this message. I didn't want to be a lukewarm Christian. I wanted to grow that relationship. I wanted to understand what that meant. And I wanted to feel like He was sitting in the truck next to me and I was talking to Him all day long. So it really, I wish so much that I had that just from the get-go as a child, but I always believed in Him, but I definitely tried to stray several times, and thank goodness He kept coming after my heart like He always does. But it's one of those things where my biggest struggle is that the enemy is so good at giving us a lot of distractions, and my life sometimes can get so chaotic that I struggle sometimes devoting that time to that relationship. And that's been one of the last couple of years. And I'm so thankful for mentors in the sport like Matt Ball, Steve Owens, Cody Prather, Guillermo, my boyfriend, who are incredible spiritual leaders and good men. And they are all, Cody's wife, Sarah, is another one. We have a very tight knit group in that regard that, kind of reach out to one another and touch base and kind of talk about God and our world and all these things. And it just really helps when everything's kind of spinning around. So that's my big focus now, though, moving forward, is just to remember to not get too distracted,
Absolutely. And you've had some other kind of big changes in your life recently. Um, you were no longer living the nomadic lifestyle. I saw the post about that the other day, and it was like, I am very much I'm a homebody. Like, if I'm not forced to travel, like, I'm probably not going to very often. My wife is someone who does like to travel, so I have traveled more in the past in the past 10 years of us being together than I did my entire life combined, for sure. But and so to me, I have very much the opposite lifestyle of you. But I was interested to kind of get your thoughts on that, like the the concept of home and and um, like to someone who prefers that nomadic lifestyle. What does the concept of home look like to you, and how has it changed since you have built your house?
Well, that's a good question because it still feels so bizarre. I was on the road for 6 years, 6 years without a home, and I still can't believe that I made it that long. Because I think God does build some of us a little differently, and I do think that at least for this phase of my life, I was built to travel. And even, when I would stay still for a couple of weeks, I was ready to kind of get going again. But at the same time, I was longing just for somewhere to go to, because I never felt like, even if I go to my parents' house or a friend's house or go visit G, this just it wasn't something I owned that I could come and just throw my stuff all over the floor and just kick my feet up and just go, this is great. So I was missing that this whole time. And what's funny is when I built my house, I got it done right after ICAST. I had a bunch of people come over and help me get everything moved in and set up. And then everybody left and it was just me there. And for the first time, I didn't have to pick up and leave. And my entire system crashed. I mean, crashed. I think for 4 days, I just kind of sat in my house and didn't do anything. And I'm a very high functioning. You mentioned ADHD. I'm pretty sure I've got it to some degree. My dad swears because I never wanted to be diagnosed, but I'm very high functioning. I have to keep going. And this thing up here goes 1,000 miles an hour. And I just kind of force myself just to sit in my house for 4 days and just understand that I don't have to go anywhere. I have nowhere to go. This is it. This is here. That was a very difficult adjustment for me. Just having it weird. And I'm still, I went, picked up, packed, left, went on a tournament, came back to the house. I was there for 2 days and then I'm on the road again. I'm down in Georgia right now. So, but just having those 2 days there, that peace that brought, just a place where my things are and my stuff's in the garage, it's organized, I know where things are, just a place that I know is there waiting for me. It's pretty dang special. I've always been one that's believed like, home is where the heart is, home is where you make it. And, for me, it's been on the road. It's on the pavement, hearing the tires just keep spinning around and around. And just, that's where I've always felt free. That's where I've always talked to God. That's where I love just that liberation that comes with just being on the road by yourself, just traveling across, the varying landscapes of our country. And, but there's something that having a place, you can't replace that. And so while I have a home now, I'm not going to slow down anytime on the road. I still want to do it, but it's definitely, it's a piece that I haven't had in a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because me and Cam, we don't like get together before and say, "Oh, let's ask this, let's ask this." So I had a list of things that I was going to ask, and that was on there too because I know that is a huge change. And it was really like when you made that post, you're standing by the garage. I think it was raining or something, and it was like, and I was like, "Huh." I was like, that is going to be a tough adjustment, but it's going to be so good. You know what I mean? It's going to be an adjustment, but at the same time, I'm like, well, that's great. I was like, that is probably exactly what she needs at this point, is not to stop traveling and doing what you do because that's who you are, but to have a place to come back to so you can go for a month and go do all these tournaments and then come back for 2 weeks. And then I don't know. It was just pretty cool, and I was glad to see that. So that's kind of funny.
A lot. Yeah, it was, for people that know my story and that in that regard and kind of what all I went through to get that house. It major blessing to finally get it done and just have it. So I was so thankful. And yeah, it was a tough adjustment. I'm still, like I said, I'm still not totally used to it, but ask me again in about a year.
Yeah, you'll love it, and you're probably a lot more centrally located. To all the tournaments and stuff. Yeah, that's just like when the Bassmaster schedule came out. I'm like, you got to go to Texas and Louisiana, and we're both in North Carolina, close to, we're 2 hours from the beach. So anything that's past, anything that's over that way is a haul. Like Toledo Bend was 16 hours from Raleigh. And so when you get over there, it's like, man, you're talking about almost 2 days of driving unless you drive it straight through, which is tough. And then you're talking about, taking, if you're going to get there and pre-fish, which you have to do if you're going to compete in any of those, you've got to get a couple of days of pre-fishing. And it's, for anybody that has jobs, it's tough to do. And so I know being centrally located is gonna save on that travel for you. And,
absolutely,
most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is a neighbor state, and Kristine, you and I met in person at the Dale Hollow event from Paddle and Fin, and that was over 8 hours of driving for me. So,
oh gosh,
so like that's just next door. So
both of those states are super long. So I'm originally from around Nashville, so I'm from like 40 minutes northeast of Nashville and Clarksville. So, but what a great place to be. So
yeah,
doesn't get much better.
For sure. Well, Robert, you said you had a whole list of stuff that you wanted to ask about, so I'm gonna let you take over for a minute before we
Oh,
before we
sure. Yeah, I'll
get
shoot a
too
couple
far.
questions out there. What do you think about the Bassmaster schedule?
Fantastic. Sibo did a great job at reaching out to some of the anglers to get some input on
Yeah.
what bites were kind of firing off certain times of the year. And there were a lot of really good options out there for as far as what lakes to go to. And I know it's so hard when people see the schedule and they're like, oh, you didn't come out this way or didn't come out that way. It's so hard to put a tournament schedule together for
Oh,
TDs.
yeah.
It's not just, they have to consider, they have to hit a certain number of participation. So if there's an area that historically doesn't get it, they've got to build first before they're allowed to have one that they know is not going to do very well. They have to have host communities that are willing to work with them and help them out in any capacity, as you guys probably well know. So I think he did a fantastic job. And those lakes are going to, every single lake that we're hitting in river it's the right time to do it. It's going to be an incredible schedule. I want to fish all 5. So I'm really looking forward to that, and hope you guys can make it to a couple too.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to fish Lake Murray. Well, all of my stuff revolves around my kids: baseball, softball,
Oh
cross
gosh, I know
country.
that's busy.
So
Yeah.
I try to get to what I can. And, I got spoiled on COVID because everything was canceled. So 2022, I went to Toledo Bend, I went to Santee Cooper, I went to Susquehanna. And, now we're back to real life, and the schedules, the sports are started back up. So now I'm just trying to make the local stuff, and I'm having a hard time even doing that. So, but staying with the Bassmaster and Steve, is that going to be the premier kayak national event? Is it gonna surpass Hobie? Or right now, I feel like they're neck and neck, and I feel like that's really the only two that I don't want to say that matter, but they're definitely the top two.
I would agree
And
with that.
what
Yeah.
what does Hobie have to do to stay right there with it? Because Bassmaster has the name, they have this marketing and media giant that, I mean, for me, I'm still trying to figure out what state I can drive to try to qualify on a state championship. And I'm still trying to figure out how to qualify for it because of the recognition you would get from just going to fish that, at the classic that week. And that's something that Hobie doesn't have, but Hobie has been on top for the last 3 or 4 years. And, what do they need to do to stay right there with it? Or is it just going to be, is it going to kind of settle out? What are your thoughts on that?
It's always been kind of interesting to me how I've seen, throughout the entirety of this national kayak fishing scene, it's always seemed to be like one trail pinned against the other a little bit. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but the I try not to look at it like that, and I don't ever think, this one's better than this one or this one. I think that as long as they're being ran, smoothly, which both AJ and Steve are
Yes.
great, just very reputable TDs. They're thorough, to the point. People respect them. They put good schedules out there. I try to look at it from their perspective, and I hate that it has to be a competition. And I know that they do kind of um, indirectly compete for anglers and participation. But I think that, the way I look at it, they are two very successful trails that that we are very fortunate to have as kayak anglers. And, even KBF has a lot to offer for, people. They do the online thing that nobody else has. I know that a lot of people enjoy that. So I try to really look at it as less of a, competition between the trails and more of a, what does Hobie offer the anglers? What does Bass offer the anglers? And Bass, the classic is pretty dang cool. I really like that. Hobie, they've stepped up and kind of done a phenomenal job and gave us something in the TOC. Here's the thing that Hobie offers that Bass may not. The classic for Bassmaster, it'll qualify well over 100 people, 200, 300 people because of the state level stuff. And there's a lot of roll downs, right? To qualify for the TOC is something incredibly special that only 50 people have been able to do. And then this year, 60. So that championship, I think, is, kind of the premier championship, even though it doesn't have the name or the classic stage or any of that. It's the harder one to qualify, which is kind of cool. So I look at it as, I like this trail for this, I like this trail for this. And I think that as long as they both keep, I would like, I think one thing that could be better is if Hobie did less events. 8, 9
Okay.
events is too, I just think it's too much. I know for people like myself and a lot of my friends that, try to fish as much as they can. This spring, we were hit so hard with event to event to event. And what that did, when you have 2 trails that are successful, I think it showed us that we can't really sustain 2 trails with that many events, because a lot of the attendance, even for Bassmaster, kind of leveled off a little bit, right? No events capped out. So I think having a 5 event schedule, if Bass did 5 and Hobie did 5, that would just, I think the attendance would be up, the average numbers would be up for all of it, because anglers would fish, they'd be able to have less to kind of choose from all over the place. So I think that Hobie could really look at doing fewer events.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know Steve got some pushback on just having the 5 and then going to 4, for the points count. What do you think about that? You think it should be 5 and you have 4 that count and you can drop 1, or do you like the 3 and you can drop 2?
I like the 4. I think
like
you
the
get
4?
4, because if I think about it, if we want to make this that upper
I'm with you.
echelon, and make the AOI actually mean something, drop 1. You get 1 drop, and having 4 really gives us that more well-rounded angler. I think that was consistent more than just 3 times. Because you think about it, 5 events, you have 3, that's almost 50%. You have 2 drops, I don't know. I think 4 is the magic number for that.
Yeah,
I
I agree. It makes some people push more of their chips into the center of the table if you have to have 4, and
Exactly.
takes out. It does take out some of the regional anglers, because that's what I was like when I saw the schedule come out. I was like, oh, I can make it to Murray, and I can make it to Guntersville, I can make it to Susquehanna, and then you have the other 2 that are super far from me, and I'm like, oh. And then the next day I'm like, I read that it's 4, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm doing that then. But at the same time, if I was doing this all the time, I think I would like that, just like you said, because you're going to have the people that are really bought into it, and it's going to take some of the, you can go to Guntersville, and if somebody lives on Guntersville, they may do great in that one, but they may not want to take the drive, and so it's going to, if you get a third, but you have 2 people that live on or close to Guntersville, get first and second, you're still, if they're not traveling to the other ones, it's almost like a first for that one.
Exactly.
So the other thing I wanted to touch on is the Hobie Worlds. So that's something else too that Hobie has that
Yes, I forgot about
Bassmaster
that.
doesn't. And I think that is just watching it, you guys post, and I think that everybody that was here when you guys were over there, because now it's almost like you're there. If you follow all these people on Instagram, and everybody's posting stuff. Jordan Marshall's posting what he's eating, and he's doing all these posts, and Lambert's posting stuff. You're posting stuff, and it's almost like everybody's there, because we get to see that through you guys. But shine a little light on that, because you've done that, I think, several times.
Just
That
one.
just one. Okay.
Yeah, I qualified though for the next, because they had to take 2 years off for COVID. So I'll go to the next 2 worlds as well. I've qualified for 3 now.
Okay.
But I've only got to go to 1. But yeah, that experience all in itself was, when I first started kayak fishing, I'd always heard about that worlds tournament, and it was my goal, my number 1 goal, to qualify for that. And it exceeded all of my expectations. It was such an amazing experience. I love meeting the anglers and the competitors from, the 30 different countries. It was just a spectacular event. It really was. Hats off to Steve Fields for that. I mean, I look forward to the next 2 I get to go to, because because I
That
qualified.
looked like so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I love most about the Hobie Worlds is it's not just bass. Like you
Yeah,
get to go
pike
all over
fishing.
the place and
Woo!
say what?
I was pike fishing in
Yeah.
Sweden. Like that's been my dream since I was a kid. So yes, I was super stoked about that.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you're allowed to say it if you know it or not, but do you know where you're going to be fishing next?
I don't know.
Okay. Where do you hope you're fishing next?
I want to go to Brazil. I'm gonna fish for some peacock bass.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many fish over there that are like really high on my bucket list. I mean, the Amazon River, I think, is like pretty close to the Atlantic Ocean in terms of like the number of species that it holds, which is mind-boggling. But like, yeah, that would be an awesome trip to like go and like go and fish out of Manaus or something.
That would
Heck
be pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, I watch way too much River Monsters, even now that it's been off of the air for like 5 years.
That's okay. Jeremy Wade is one of my heroes. So
Same. Robert, was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind of?
You better run a couple of commercials because we will sit here and talk all night. But
Well, before we do that, there's a couple questions that we always ask all of our guests, and I want to make sure that we ask you. What fishing story or memory means the most to you?
it's got to be fishing with my grandpa. Every Sunday, we'd have Grandpa would make us fish-shaped pancakes, blueberry pancakes from blueberries we picked up in Minnesota, and we would go down to the city lakes. He'd make these. He'd either make his homemade dough ball, or he'd take a thing of Wheaties and take it in the lake water and mash it up, and we'd catch carp off this at the city lakes a block from my house. That
That is
definitely,
awesome.
yeah, definitely.
carp, that's right down your alley, Cam.
It is, and it's funny. Whenever I was a kid and my dad would take me carp fishing, I hated it. I hated carp fishing because I wanted to be bass fishing. I wanted to be casting and moving down the bank. I didn't want to be sitting in one spot. But now I'm like, I'm all about the carp. Like especially from a kayak, I'm wanting to hit that 30-pound mark in a kayak, and um, I I haven't done it yet, but I know where they are. I just got to get them to get dumb enough to eat.
Yeah. Well, when I went to sidebar really quick, when I went to the swamp at Sharon Harris, I went all the way up there because I was trying to see if those bass were on those flats. There were so many carp up there that it looked like redfish. Their fins were out of the water, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And they were huge. I was standing up, casting at them because sometimes I'm thinking that there were bass mixed in with them, and it was just a crazy sight. I've never seen that many carp with. It just looked like schools of redfish everywhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been on Harris where the smaller ones, like about a pound to 3 pounds, were up at the top and popping at the top of the water. And there were so many of them, it sounded like it was raining. But I haven't seen them like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I have to check that out.
Yep. Another question that we ask everybody is when you're, and we kind of already know the answer because you film a lot of your stuff, so we get to see a lot of your conversations. But if you're out on the water, what are your normal conversations? What are you talking about, and things like that? If you're fishing with somebody else.
Oh, gosh, anything and everything in between. Just I get very animated out in the water because I just love what I do. And when I've got G and I we have such a good time together. I mean, he and I will have friendly little banters and stuff and friendly competitions, and we'll talk about everything from the fishing to life to just absolutely. I'm like a closet nerd for those people that didn't know. A lot of people think I'm really cool, and I'm really not. Like I'm pretty nerdy. I'll talk about Star Wars and stuff like that. So, and just really lame jokes, but just the stuff that makes life go round. The fun, kind of lighthearted. That's all up my alley.
Awesome. Well, we are going to jump into our What's Your Favorite segment. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're just going to ask you your favorite in a few different categories, but we're going to dive into that right after this.
Okay.
A huge selection and crazy fast shipping is already enough to turn heads as an online tackle shop, but Omnia Fishing sets themselves apart with their ambassador program. With Omnia, you can send in fishing reports for your local lakes that recommend baits, structure, tactics, and gear. And when another angler takes your advice and purchases something from your report, you get credit for it to spend at Omnia. The best part means that with Omnia Fishing, you can shop by lake and purchase baits and gear that are proven to work where you're fishing. To get started, go to omniafishing.com and use promo code FNF15 to save 15% on your first order.
Few things ruin your day on the water as bad as losing gear. But with the retrieval devices for fishing rods, action cams, bow fishing bows, and more from Save Your Outdoors, you don't have to let dropping your stuff ruin your day because you can get it back. The pressure-sensitive filter keeps water from rain and quick dips in the water out, but it lets water in when your gear goes overboard to release a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back. Go to SaveYourOutdoors.com to learn more and try some for yourself, and use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% on your order. That's SaveYourOutdoors.com and promo code FNFP15. All right, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so the first up, what is your favorite scripture?
Joshua 1:9.
Awesome. Robert, you're up, man.
All right. So, what is your favorite Bible story?
Probably the book of Job, which is like really depressing for a lot of people, but to me, it's truly a testament of God's faithfulness to us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Job is phenomenal. All right. Your favorite fish to catch?
Muskie, easy.
What is it about the muskie?
It challenges you mentally, physically, and emotionally more than anything else on this planet.
Absolutely. I haven't caught one yet. And I haven't spent a ton of time where they are is part of the problem, but I cut my teeth on the mill ponds in eastern North Carolina and have had my fair share of run-ins with the chain pickerel, and I loved catching those, and I always, every time I caught one, I would pick it up and I'd be like, scale this up like 8 times. How fun would that be?
Yes, they are fun.
All right. So, that's your favorite fish to catch. What about the fish for? Some people have the same one, or some people like same. Yeah. I figured that was going to be the case.
So they're called the fish of 10,000 casts. How many casts do you think it took for you to catch your first one?
Probably that. Probably that.
Awesome. All right. Your favorite fish to eat?
Walleye. Ooh, or tuna. I really like ahi tuna a lot. But freshwater walleye, saltwater, probably either grouper or tuna.
Okay. And so I always like to follow up with how do you like it cooked? So I am going to judge you on this answer. So for both walleye and tuna, how do you like it cooked?
Tuna is easy. That's got to be, I like it rare. I like the sashimi style, sashimi grade tuna. Walleye, gosh, there's not a bad way to cook. I love it baked, but I also like it fried. But there's a really good way to bake it with black pepper seasoning and lemon. It's just really good. But I'm a sucker for fried fish too.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. I have not found it anywhere to have it yet. So I haven't tried walleye yet, but I am everybody who is from above the Mason-Dixon always says it's walleye. So I'm looking forward to trying it for sure. And the tuna, I was absolutely going to judge you if you if you cooked it at all, to be
Well,
completely honest with you. But
that's as you should. I should get judged for that. But no,
All right. Favorite fishing snack?
gosh. You can tell I don't eat very much when I'm fishing. I'm a food. I eat everything. Yeah, something that's easy. Usually, I'll just try to like. Sometimes Russ will make this weird like concoction of rice and beans and turkey, and I'll take some of that from him if we're staying at the house. That stuff's pretty good and it's filling. I don't know what he calls it, but it's supposed to be healthy for you too.
Huh, interesting.
all right, so I don't need like GPS coordinates or secret spots or anything, but what's your favorite body of water to fish?
I would say my favorite. I'm gonna kind of just say it a region, and it is the Boulder Junction region of Wisconsin. Every little lake and river, the Wisconsin River, a lot of the lakes around there. It's my favorite part of the country and favorite areas to fish.
Okay,
Love that area, so I'll have to say that.
that's on Drew Gregory's trail this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We're that far south on it. This is where he is probably 3.5 hours further south.
Okay,
But yeah.
awesome.
Cool. If you had to pick one lure, what's your favorite lure to throw?
I really like there's a wake bait that I really like, but I'm also a big buzz bait person. I love throwing a good buzz bait with a little buzz toad on it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a follow up on that one too. So I'm assuming that was your answer for bass. What's your favorite musky lure?
I love the Chaos Tackle Medusa is probably my favorite. The big Medusa. Love that one. I also like the Poseidon. I love throwing the big creeper crawler from Bitten Tackle is fun too. I love those topwater blow ups. Got a couple of them, but I'd say that Medusa is my favorite.
Okay, so remember you're talking to a guy
It
from
looks like an
Eastern North Carolina. So the Medusa is what now?
It looks like an octopus. That's the best.
Okay,
It's like a big rubber body with like 3 big long tentacles coming down. I mean, they're huge.
right. I knew it was going to be big, but all right. Is it my turn, Robert?
Yep.
All right. All right. I think this is last but not least. Your favorite time of year to fish?
Can I have 2 answers?
I'll let you have to.
Okay, thank you. That's super kind. I'm gonna say spring for bass fishing, winter for muskie fishing.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I know around here, winter is like whenever the water gets colder is whenever the pickerels start getting more active and everything. So I can kind of imagine it the same. Probably the entire Esox genus it probably has that same. Sorry,
Mentality.
you said you were a closet nerd, so it brought a little bit of the nerd out in me, and I started dropping scientific names.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So here's a follow-up muskie question. Have you looked in Tennessee and found the Tennessee water that has some?
Oh, Robert, here's the thing. I bought my lot because it was within an hour each direction of 4 of my favorite muskie holes. I've been fishing muskie for like 8 years now.
All right.
I made sure my house I could get to this one an hour, this one to an hour, this one to an hour, and that one to an hour.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, you're in a good spot there then.
Mm-hmm. Smack dab in the middle of it.
Yep. I went to school in Cookeville, so that you're not a whole lot.
Oh, I'm about an hour from Cookeville.
Yep. And did you fish Center Hill for the kayak? The national. What is that? What was that? The kayak.
Whatever it was called. Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I love that. I love that lake.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are going to start wrapping things up. if you could, Kristine, let us know what you got coming up for you. Like, what's coming down the pipe?
Well, interestingly enough, all I have left competitive wise is the TOC, and I'm getting ready to start doing my muskie fishing. So I'll be doing a lot of that. I'm actually going to go up to the Lake Cumberland Dam with Kurt Smits and a couple people, I think, next week. And this is when I love to meet up with my friends and just other kayak anglers around the country and just do some fun fishing on the off season. So TOC, but a lot of muskie fishing and a lot of fun fishing.
Awesome. And I want to give you a chance to, plug your socials. If our listeners want to follow your adventures, tell us where to find you, and all that good stuff.
It's Kristine Fischer on YouTube and Facebook, and then Midwest Fisher Gal on Instagram.
Awesome. And I can't believe this never came up or has not come up yet, but what a great last name for what you are doing.
I get told that a lot.
But I want to give you an open floor to shout out sponsors and supporters. Anybody you want to say thank you to or give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Well, first and foremost, we've got to thank God. He gives us all the ability to do this. It's his creation. We get to enjoy. And lastly, I just want to thank you guys for having me on and for having this podcast and for getting, for being a light. There's a lot of drama out there, and it's really easy to talk about the dramatic stuff. And I know a lot of podcasts do, and it's refreshing to come on here and have you guys put a lot of good, positive stuff out there. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. We do dabble in the drama a little bit here and there, but we try to be more positive. But yeah,
we dabble in the drama on the positive side.
Yeah, that's good. We like that.
Awesome. Well, Kristine, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for sticking with me whenever it took me so long to get you back on. But yeah, thank you for coming on. We've had a blast.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. Yep. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on-the-water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check out shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
If a fly rod is your weapon of choice, check out Atollas. Their fly caddy is the most convenient way to get your favorite flies to the water, or just keep them handy by clipping it to your hat, truck visor, backpack, rod case, or just whatever. You can also bundle it up with flies from independent fly tires that Atollas has teamed up with through their Fly Light project. Choose from bundles specializing in redfish, carp, saltwater, or freshwater. Head over to atollas.co, that's ATOLLAS.co, to get your fly caddy today and use promo code faithnfish15 to save 15% on your order. That's faith the letter N, fish the number 15 at checkout for 15% off. Another huge thank you to Kristine for coming on the show and sharing her story with us. And I will, of course, leave all of her links in the show notes, as well as the All Things Faith and Fishing links. So if you're looking for merch, if you're looking for sponsor links, anything like that, go ahead, click that link and find where you want to go and head on over. Robert, man, it was good to be back to interviewing somebody together.
Yeah, we've been all. I was with Jeff last week, and then I wasn't there the week before, and you did. So yeah, it was good. It was good. But this podcast really could have lasted like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, she has so much content out there, so many tips, tricks. We didn't even talk about G that much and the huge fish that he caught a couple of weeks back, and I got a kick out. I got a kick out of the video on that. He's like, babe. I I was going to talk about that because that had me rolling the floor. Just, you know, I don't know. It's just fun to see when people film the same trip. And we talked about this before, and I forget who it was with, but we had somebody on and both of them were filming, and it's fun to watch those trips from two different views. And we may have been talking to Rudd and Creek Fishing Adventures or something, because they do that a lot. So that was awesome.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, you want to pray for us and close it out, man?
Heavenly Father, thank you for the day you've given us. Thank you for giving us this platform to share your word and to bring people closer to you. Please watch over us and watch over everybody that's either watching or listening, and get them where they're going safely, and let everybody get to the water and get off the water safely. And forgive us of our sins, and please let our actions and words bring people closer to you. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Sounds good, man. That was a good one.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by Cam Steele and Robert Randolph, and is sponsored by Savior Outdoors, Jay's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Mr. B Lure Company, Atollas, and Omnia Fishing. Don't forget to join the Facebook community, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe, rate, and review us on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.